name is Heather Wokusch, and welcome to this segment in which we will meet the Granny Peace Brigade. We will meet two members of the Granny Peace Brigade. Now, what is a Granny Peace Brigade, apart from a fabulous name? In October 2005, a group of women went to the Times Square Recruitment Center asking to enlist in place of their grandchildren. And they were basically arrested for disorderly conduct, tried in New York Criminal Court, later acquitted. Now, since then, members of New York's Granny Peace Brigade have fought and fought, if you can use that term. They have been arrested. They have done everything they can to educate New Yorkers and indeed people everywhere about the dangers of war and the necessity for peace. We are delighted today to be joined by two members of the Granny Peace Brigade. Now, first of all is a lovely woman named Molly Klopot, who is 93 years old, and she recently retired as chair of the New York Metro branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and she is a co-founder of the Granny Peace Brigade. She's a former social worker and supervisor of social work students at NYU. Molly has been active in the peace movement for decades. Despite being legally blind, she regularly makes the long trip from Coney Island to Manhattan to pursue her amazing work for peace. We also are joined by Nydia Leaf, who is also a member of the Granny Peace Brigade. Working as an activist is in her genes, actually, because in 1930, her father was exiled by Rafael Trujillo, who was a Latin American dictator. She grew up in a very politically aware household and has continued that work for peace and freedom. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, both of you. We really appreciate it. So we will begin with you then, Molly. Now, you are a co-founder of the Granny Peace Brigade. Can you give us a little bit of information about how this came to start?
Well, first, I think we have to see this in the setting of women and war and peace. Mm-hmm. Women, you know, are 52% of the population, mm-hmm. and women or children are 70% of the victims of war. Mm-hmm. Now, way back in 1914, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom was started, and our branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom started as the Women's Peace Party in 1914. There are branches of WILF, that's WILF, all over the country. Mm-hmm. In the 1980s, in Canada, the Granny Peace Brigade started. Mm-hmm. They dress up as grannies and they sing songs, they vigil, they sing peace songs, parodies. Mm-hmm. We have in the United States, among the WILF branches, many granny singing. The Tucson branch of WILF mm-hmm. started a vigil by the recruiting booth in Tucson. Mm-hmm. Then they went down and they said, we want to be recruited in place of our children. They were arrested. There was a court hearing. It was on TV. It was on national TV, mm-hmm. and the case was dismissed. Okay. When I heard about that in New York, we called them. They sent us what had been on TV, and we put out a call for women to come. Okay. Now, one of our members vigiled with the Grannies Against the War. Okay. They vigil before Rockefeller Center, I think, every Wednesday. Mm-hmm. When the meeting was called, all these women came, and out of that grew what became the Granny Peace Brigade. Okay. We showed the film. We had the TV film. Mm-hmm. We talked to the people mm-hmm. from Tucson that evening, mm-hmm. and we decided that we were going to do the same thing. That was the beginning.
And how did you get involved in this, Nydia?
I've known Molly for a number of years prior to 2005, and when the group gathered, I attended a number of the meetings, but I was not in the initial arrest group because I had certain personal responsibilities for a brother of mine. Mm-hmm. I thought, I don't want to get arrested. I don't know what's going to happen, mm-hmm. but I will certainly be there and lend support. Mm-hmm. And there had to be support people mm-hmm. because if they were arrested, we didn't know quite what would happen, but assuming that they would be arrested, somebody was going to have to call relatives and say, you know, so-and-so just got arrested, you know. Yeah. So there was a support cadre to the initial 18
Okay.
who were arrested.
It was that in 2005 that
That
you're
was
talking
2005
about? Okay.
at the
And
Times
so
Square.
18 people were arrested at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, being arrested is a painful thing. I mean, it's not a sensitive, soft experience. And if one is elderly, that can be physically dangerous. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
and members of the Granny Peace Brigade have been arrested again and again and again. And so I find that inspiring on so many levels. But what is it that prompts you? What is it that moves you to do this? Not only to be arrested, but to continue to work for these topics.
In my case, I think it's because the alternative is too terrible to even contemplate. We have to be active. The forces that are gaining in power, unfortunately, are not diminishing. They're just keeping rolling along like a juggernaut. We're retired. We've got grandchildren.
We're in a wonderful position.
Yeah.
We're retired. Not only that, we're women who've been in the working field. We have all kinds of teachers, you know, social and so on, so that we come with experience. And I remember during the court hearing, and incidentally, every single one of the people who were arrested testified.
Okay.
And you had to begin by giving your background, and there was one person who apologetically said, "I only graduated from high school," because the other, everybody had work experience and background.
Yeah.
So we bring that.
Yeah.
Now, and then you retire. Now, you don't retire out of life, you don't, and you're used to working. As a matter of fact, in order to stay young, you have to work. You have to be with people of all ages, and you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. We have that. We have that, working with women on peace to save, you know, a world for our grandchildren. So we're lucky.
Do you ever have people within your family or friends who say, "Don't do that, that's dangerous, you should be staying home"? Or do they support you? Or do you get both?
I think most of the reactions that I get is that they're glad we're doing it because
Yeah.
many of them cannot for one
Yeah.
reason or another.
Okay.
But, you know, but their hearts are with us.
Okay.
But that's an important point that she made. Many of them can't because they're working. We have the time now.
Okay.
We put in our work. So we have the time, we have the experience, we want to be involved. We don't want to drop out of life. And incidentally, one of the ways of staying young is to be involved, and to be involved with people of all ages. So we're lucky.
And the people of all ages are lucky that you're doing this, I can say this.
Well, I mean, we've got different committees, you know, that sort of
Yeah.
reach out to network with other groups that are out there that are in the same struggle we are.
So I understand that you have these 4 different committees. One is the website committee, okay, but then can you explain a little bit about the 3 other committees and what they do and how you do network with other people? For example, you've got the No Bases Committee, and what exactly do they do?
She's the chair of the No
Okay,
Bases
can you tell us about the No Bases
The,
Committee?
the No Bases Committee, we also have counter-recruitment, and we've got the Miss Gizmo. You know,
Okay.
we have a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Well, let's focus on No Bases first. Who do you affiliate with, and what is your goal?
Well, the United States has such a large network of foreign bases in other countries. We don't even know the exact number.
Right, right.
And it can be anywhere from a gigantic base, as we know there are now in Iraq, to something that they call lily pads, which are just very small little depots. And they're all over the world. They have engendered a lot of hatred toward us. Countries that do not want our presence there. So we have held teach-ins, forums, and we've focused on a particular area at any time. So one was about when the United States reactivated its 4th fleet off the waters of Latin America.
Okay.
It had been dormant for decades, and suddenly we're reactivating it. You know? And here you've got Guantanamo, which is a sore spot for Latin America anyhow. So we did a teach-in about Latin America.
Okay.
Then we did one about the Asia-Pacific region, because the Japanese do not want us in their bases.
Yeah.
Japan has such little land space that to have golf courses on Okinawa, you know, if the military has a golf course. The Marines may want a golf course also, a separate, it's that kind of, not to mention the pollution, rape, which takes place, the cost of the depletion of their resources in these places. So anyhow, we've done a series of teach-ins.
And may I ask, to whom are these teach-ins addressed? Just anybody who wants to come, or do you target schools, or who goes to these teach-ins?
Well, they're open to the public, and usually the venue has been either a church or a public space.
Okay.
And when we do it, some of the other groups that sponsor, co-sponsor, or endorse it, you've got the Veterans for Peace, Peace Action, War Resisters League, all the whole range, Code Pink, Gray Panthers, they're all out there. And they do want to get the word out, because apart from the financial burden that it is to the United States, it's also the cost to the host country that doesn't want us.
I lived in Japan for 12 years, and I also lived in the Philippines, and so I experienced firsthand, they're so angry about having the bases in there. And for me, it was interesting, too, just driving down the street in Okinawa or something. You see gun firing ranges everywhere. You never see that, this kind of militaristic aspect. You don't see that in other parts of Japan. And so I can attest that, indeed, most people are definitely not happy with this, but if the government wants it, then that's the way it is, very unfortunately. So we've got the No Bases Committee. We also have the Counter-Recruitment Committee. Can you tell us anything about the Counter-Recruitment Committee?
They work in the schools to get the recruiters out of the schools, to see that they don't get the names of the kids, to send them all the
propaganda.
Propaganda, They will work on, for instance, parent-teacher meeting nights. They will be out there to meet with the parents, to let them know not to sign certain papers and so on. What's the latest that they're doing?
Well, the latest campaign, because the person who does that is Barbara Harris.
Yeah.
Okay.
The latest campaign is focusing on the privacy issue, because it is an invasion of privacy.
Indeed, yeah.
When a school turns over to the Pentagon a child's home address, their grades, and they can aim and target these specific people. So there's a battery of tests called Armed Services Vocational Aptitude. And parents think, oh, this is great. The kids can take an exam. It'll give us a sense of where they are. But that information can be given to the military unless the school district says no.
Okay.
And they have that option. But a lot of school districts do not know that. So here in New York City, we now have that option. The material is not sent out.
Okay.
So in New York City, the kids are protected. Outside the state, it's a patchwork. Some school districts, yes, some no. So there's actually a campaign throughout the country, because this test is not just for New York State, to inform guidance counselors and parents that if they want to protect the privacy of their children, this is what they need to do.
Let's face it, I think across the country, the issue, I think the quote was that rich kids go to college and poor kids go to Iraq, and so the recruitment effort is in these, poorer parts of town, with those schools, and so, it's the same place across the country, but is it because of your work? Were you involved in that, or was it always the case that New York did not give this information out?
This was the group that Barbara works with, which is on the international,
that's
on the
fantastic.
national level.
That's really so important. And I think also there's a certain amount of credibility when we have grandmothers come in who say, hey, that's not right. That has more credibility than possibly somebody else coming in.
There's another part to this, and that is to help the young people see what other kinds of things they could be doing with their lives.
Okay. And then you've also got the legislative.
All right. One of the things we do is the phone-a-thon.
Phone-a-thon.
We go out with our phones, and we have an issue, a legislative issue.
Okay.
And we go to where people congregate.
Okay.
And we have literature on it.
Okay.
And we have according to their address, who their representative is and who they can call. So we say, this is the issue, this is the number, these are some of the things you can talk about, and we give them the phone. And they call right then and there. Going out, people say, oh my God, I can do that from home, and they feel so empowered. So that's the phone-a-thon. Then there's the gizmo. Now the gizmo is a stand with 8 plastic tubes, the size of a penny. Each tube stands for housing, medical, war,
education.
And we give each person 20 pennies. And they vote with their pennies. When they finish voting, we give them a chart of how our government spends our money. And they see, my God, most of them went to war, didn't go to education. And we give them who they can call and what they can do about it. The gizmo is very popular. And we go with it where people are in shopping centers and so on. Well, for instance, on the No War Toys, around Christmas time, we'll go, there's one big toy store around 42nd Street that has a big escalator. What is it that they have?
A Ferris wheel?
A Ferris wheel. And we went on that Ferris wheel. Singing our songs, and when it stopped, we let out our banner. No War Toys. And then the raging grannies would join, they would kick us out, you know. And outside would be the raging grannies, and we would have all these song sheets, and we would sing all these anti-war songs, and don't buy war toys for your kids.
So the toy store kicked you out.
But then we were,
But we could stay on the sidewalk.
We stayed on the sidewalk singing, and people came, and we gave out our songs, and they sang with us.
There's something else that we would like to show you now. This is Molly's bag, and so this is just another way of reaching the public. Many buttons. So we've got no war on Iran. How is the war economy working for you? Wonderful. I'm a raging granny. Books, not bombs. So basically, when you ride the train to come into town every day, possibly people are asking you about your bag.
No, I have been asked by young women, could they photograph the buttons? And people have stopped me and have said, we're so glad what you're doing. So I remind them there's something they can do.
Well, I think that's the main thing, because society goes so fast and you forget, you know, and you're so busy, and then you're late and you have to go to work, and meanwhile we have more wars and we don't have enough information about the wars that we're in. And so just seeing somebody who stops and says, hey, listen and watch is kind of a miracle these days.
Well, we get the message out in a lot of ways. I mean, here we're wearing our "We Will Not Be Silent," you know, t-shirts.
Now we should tell them the story of why we picked that.
Yes, the "We Will Not Be Silent" statement comes from the White Rose Society in Germany in 1942. The students in Munich who were giving out leaflets at the university. Telling people what was happening in their name, you know, and they were caught, and they were put on trial. They were given the opportunity to recant, but they said no, we will not be silent. And they were actually
killed,
guillotined. But we changed that when we did our mission statement. I'll just read just a couple of statements from it, because I think we worked really hard on it. We, the Granny Peace Brigade, stand for peace. We stand for human rights and justice. We oppose war, occupation, rendition and torture, and the violence of poverty and racism. We are committed to the struggle. Working independently and with other organizations, the Granny Peace Brigade carries out its mission by providing education, voicing opposition through nonviolent means, and encouraging others to do the same by engaging in political action. We cannot be silent. It says it all. That's how we feel. We are really engaged in a major struggle for the life and soul of our country, our planet. We enjoy the interactions. The Raging Grannies sing wonderful songs.
Which you can find on YouTube, and they're fantastic.
There's no business like war business. I mean, they're just great, great lyrics that anybody can take. I mean, it's not as if it's copyrighted. Take it, run with it, use it in your own local sphere. You know?
And you also provide materials so that people can set up their own Peace Brigade group, which is great.
Now, there is another Granny Peace Brigade group in Philadelphia. We organized a trip to see every single one of our congressional representatives. I've forgotten what year this was.
Okay.
And we got a bus. And we went from New York to Washington, D.C., and we were put up every night by different peace groups, and they would have a big celebration, and we would talk.
We did the trek the end of June. We walked into Washington, D.C. on July 4th.
Yeah, and we saw all the representatives, and we met other grannies from different parts of the country. But there hasn't been what I had hoped for, that we would have grannies all over the country. And for all I know that there are, but we hope that this would be picked up. Because grannies, we have the time. See, women are working, and they're mothers, and they're busy. We now have the time. We have the capacity. We have the experience. So, and not only that, it's important to us in order to not get old, and we're getting old all the time, but the point is, in order to not really get old, you have to be with people of different ages. You have to be involved in something that's bigger than yourself, and this gives us that. So it's a tonic.
Because many people across the world will probably be seeing this segment. If you had one thing that you would like to tell young people across the world, each of you, what would that be?
It's important to be involved in making the world the kind of world you want and deserve and should have and can have, only if you really get involved with others.
And how about you, Nydia?
And one of the grannies wears a smock that says, "Democracy is not a spectator sport." And that's really how we feel. And become engaged. There is such a passion one can have for working for the future and working with other people. It's wonderful. That's what we must do.
I think our society doesn't really put those values into kids often. You know, they're playing with their little games, and they're playing their war games or whatever like that. And just the whole idea that we are a community and we can work together for peace, this message is not put out often enough, not only in the United States, but I would say everywhere, you know, at least that I would live, that I have lived.
But the Occupy Wall Street movement has started something. And it has woken up a lot of people. The fact that the mainstream media doesn't cover it doesn't mean it isn't happening.
Right, exactly.
And we've got to remember the point that women are 52% of the population. We are the mothers. We have to be involved for ourselves and our kids in the future. And this will keep you young.
I know that some members of your group are actually facing a very serious trial right now because they have been arrested a number of times and could be looking at jail time. You know, and so when might this be, and this is in New York, when might this be decided? Is there...
Well, we don't know whether it would be jail time, but one of them feels very strongly that she will not plead guilty. And if it entails going to jail, she will do that.
And the charges are for disorderly conduct?
Basically disorderly conduct, Is this is in connection with a foreclosure auction. Because... right now, there are 16 million homes underwater, you know, in terms of their mortgages. In other words, their mortgage is higher than the actual value.
Right.
And instead of the government having declared a moratorium on all foreclosures, we haven't done that. And the banks aren't helping. But, I mean, Occupy has stirred up a whole awareness of this. And people have been disrupting the auction blockades.
Was this the crime scene tape?
No, that was another arrest. I was arrested
You're very
in
creative.
2009.
Oh, yes. You know that we met at Times Square knitting boots.
Okay.
You know? And then when we put the tape around the recruiting center,
Crime scene
we've done
tape.
a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly it gets people's attention, and you know, which is the whole point, I would say.
Yeah,
Yes.
or we'll go to
Yeah.
Times Square with signs, you know, and just stand with our message.
And what kind of signs do you have? What, for example, no war, or the same kind of things on the button?
Yeah.
For the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's always a silent vigil with our banners
Okay.
right there at Times Square.
Okay.
It's in the summertime, it's August, right?
Exactly.
So you've got a lot of tourists from out of town who really are there to have fun and, you know, just eat their way through New York or go to shows or whatever.
Okay.
And here is a group of people standing, reminding you of the larger picture.
For people to get in contact with you, one is through your website, the Granny Peace Brigade. When are you at Times Square? What day? Is it on a regular day?
No.
Okay,
No.
so it's every now and then. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this posted on your website when you might be having the vigil?
Our website, I think, is probably the most up-to-date in New York.
Perfect.
The information
Perfect.
is so,
Okay.
yeah.
But we say when we're going to be out with the gizmo,
Okay.
we invite people to come.
Perfect. I can't thank both of you enough for coming. I mean, it's just absolutely, I've used the word far too many times, but it's so inspiring to meet both of you and to learn more about the work that the Granny Peace Brigade does. So if you would like to learn more about the Granny Peace Brigade, please go to the URL that is listed, and I would invite you to take the Ms. Gizmo contest or the thing for yourself and to compare your own values with the values of the U.S. government spending. And if you don't like what you see, then take some kind of action. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you very much for joining us.